We talk about death, dying, and, it inevitably also reflects into life. That's kind of the beautiful thing about death and how death is so much about life. So we're going to talk about that today. Hi, I'm Abigail. I'm here to normalize these conversations and education about death and dying so we die better at end of life and continue to use death as the valuable tool that it is to continue to bring meaning and value. Let's get into it today. Up on social media about death and how I really think death is so about life. And from my 15 years or so of working in hospice and palliative care, this is just more and more evident and so critical that I think we do get the takeaways from this. So how I always like to think about it is, what would it be without death? And that's how I kind of start either the conversation, the thought process about why death is about life. Because without it, we really start to feel the depth that death brings into life. Meaning that if death never existed, all of these experiences, these moments, these people, all of their meaning would be really diluted because they would always be around, they would never be going away, and so we wouldn't really assign a whole heck of a lot of meaning and value to these people, places, and things because they would always be around. We really sober up, if you will, and we really start to appreciate and really start to think about the value of something, especially when we think we're going to lose it. Like our health, if we end up in the hospital with a heart attack and all of a sudden our life has changed. We're on a bunch of medications, we have to be on oxygen, or we can't, run around with the grandkids like we used to, those types of things. And we have all of a sudden just shifted from doing our normal day-to-day thing to now thinking about, oh my God, the loss of my health, regretting that and feeling the loss and grieving the loss of our health. Okay, one very big example. Another big example is the loss of a loved one, obviously. We're here talking about death and dying. If death wasn't around, that person would be around all the time and we wouldn't have to worry about it. Who knows when we would talk to them, because we could talk to them in a bunch of years, after the fact. Same thing with a place or an animal or whatever. So if we really were on this endless reel of life, nothing would have the meaning that it does as it does now with death being in our existence, right? Now that we say that, it is kind of obvious. So the other thing I want to say is, even though death is around, even though death is an actual fact of life in our lives, even though that's around, we're still not as good, I think, in really appreciating people, places, and things, right? We may live with our partners and we may get a little, just kind of used to the day-to-day, and then maybe think about, not really, embracing them when we welcome them home or whatever it may be. Same thing with parents and not really taking the time to call our elderly parents because it's just like, you're busy and you have other things to do. And I'm not telling you what you should or should not do. I kind of want to stay away from telling you stuff. I really want to focus on sharing this information with you and you deciding what you want to do with it, but encouraging you to really listen and really take this in, because I have had such a great opportunity to learn from so many people who have been going through the death and dying experience, and from me personally, who has been dealing a lot with illness and been told that I would be dead by the age of 50 and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, death brings the actual meaning to life. So death inevitably is about life. So I think it's going to be hard to really convince me otherwise. So this is why, especially when we talk about death, not only do we want to talk about the practicalities of preparing for end of life and having the discussions and learning about these things that can happen at end of life, like the bleeding, the falls, all that kind of stuff that I do cover as well, but bringing the things that we can learn from death and bringing that into our lives, because it's already a part of our lives, but really welcoming it in, dispelling the negative thoughts and just negative connotation around it, knowing that it's here to provide us value. It's here to show us many things and help us understand why certain things happen, in our biology, why we, all these things, why we have fear around it, all that kind of stuff. And not to name it bad, negative, all that kind of stuff, but to know that it's part of our whole experience and part of things that we're going to experience regardless. We all, because death does exist, we have fear of loss, we have grief, we have a natural tendency to want to avoid things like death and things that could hasten our death. So in that, we share all the shit. So even though we are very different individually with our own individual characteristics, we're all basically the same because we're all dealing with the same experience and feeling the same emotions. Our experiences could be different from one person to another, but we all will inevitably experience the same emotions of guilt, anger, fear, the terror, the grief, all that kind of stuff. We're all going to feel all that stuff of emotion, those types of emotions, as well as happiness, joy, appreciation, being thankful, all that kind of stuff. And those are the things that really help to sober us into these experiences that we will inevitably partake in and really hopefully make the most of them, whether they're challenging experiences or really pleasurable experiences. So this is why I think death is a part of life. Let me know if you have questions. Let me know if you have any other thoughts around it. And when I personally think about death, I think about, the death of the physical self. And I'm opening up a little bit more as to my own personal beliefs here, just because people have wanted me to share a little bit more. But I will be talking in another video as to why I think there is something also after death, and death and something beyond our physical bodies. And that will be in another video. But let me know if you have any other thoughts or questions on this. Here to make, the content for you, hopefully to be helpful and useful. I'm Abigail, here to continue normalizing the conversations and education about death and dying. I'll see you soon.